Hi, I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for watching my videos and supporting me on Patreon. This particular video is actually the full video podcast that is normally available only on Patreon. But I wanted you to get an idea, if you're not a Patreon member, the kind of stuff that I have posted on Patreon. We do this video podcast twice a month, and then I do an audio podcast twice a month as well, and I've already posted a full example of that. This particular video podcast is going to deal with specific things that have happened in the news and how it affects gun owners, but oftentimes we're just talking about guns or whatever the case might be. Now, we've got some lighting here, which is a little bit better, and it's improved the video podcast to some degree, and that was actually purchased as a result of the contributions of people who helped out on Patreon. And I've ordered some additional lighting and some additional things to make this podcast and every video I do from this office even better. And that's what we're doing all the time, is trying to upgrade things going on with GunGuy TV so that we can produce a better product, better videos on audio podcasts, better everything for you. And that's why I ask people to help out on Patreon. In any case, without further ado, here's an example of the latest video podcast that is available on Patreon. Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for watching my videos on YouTube and VidMe, and for just in general for supporting my channel. I really deeply appreciate it. I particularly appreciate all the support you give me here on Patreon, because without it, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we're doing. Like we picked up lighting, as you can tell, so I'm looking a little bit better, I hope, and not so in the dark as I've been before when I've done this. We get a little better camera. It's not perfect, but we're upgrading as we go. We've got this nice microphone set up so that I don't have a microphone kind of hanging over by my face and you can actually see me. This is all stuff we were able to do because of your contribution on Patreon. And we have more things coming to make this a better podcast and to make videos I shoot from this little office/studio cleaner and more professional as we go. And certainly we're going to try to do that across the board with GunGuy TV. But even when you're just doing YouTube or VidMe or internet shows, it costs money. This equipment is expensive. These microphones are expensive. This stuff's expensive, and I can't fund it out of my own pocket. So that's why I'm so grateful for your contribution, even of $1 a month. It may not seem like much to you, but let me tell you, it's an awful lot to me, and it does help a tremendous amount to get the kind of things that we need in order to make the show better for you. It does cost money to produce videos. It doesn't cost any money to watch them. People say YouTube is free, and they're right. It's free to watch. It isn't free to produce the videos. That costs money and time. So I thank you very much for all that you do. Thank you very much for all of your support. Now, we've got a podcast here that's going to cover a couple things, but most notably, before I start talking about other stuff, I want to go over some of the things that happen in California and in restrictive states where laws have not been passed to protect honest, law-abiding citizens who decide to help, as opposed to other states where laws have been passed, in some cases, to protect citizens who wish to help and be good Samaritans. One shining example, or I don't know if it's shining or not, but it's definitely an example, is a recent thing that happened at a Starbucks in California. And I'll show you the video of the news coverage of that briefly, and then I'll talk about it more.
This is 58-year-old Craig Jerry enjoying his Starbucks order and working on an iPad at 5:30 Thursday evening at the Starbucks store on Golden State near Herndon and Highway 99 in Fresno. Suddenly, a man holding a yellow bag wearing an Optimus Prime Transformers mask flashes by and heads to the register. Jerry watches as the man threatens the clerk with a fake gun and eventually a buck knife, demanding money. Police investigators say the man in the mask is 30-year-old Ryan Michael Flores. And what Flores doesn't realize is Craig Jerry has made up his mind. With a chair in hand, he plans to stop the robbery attempt. Jerry hits Flores from behind and a fight ensues. Investigators say Jerry was stabbed in the neck during the struggle, but managed to wrestle away the knife and stab Flores several times. Flores would flee the store and was later arrested by police.
There's probably not very many people in America that would do what Craig Jerry did last night. That was incredibly heroic, and it is the way that I would think most people would think that they would respond, but may not have the courage to respond.
This video is now making national headlines, and Jerry is being touted a hero locally and on social media. But police leaders say getting involved like this was risky, and it could have had tragic consequences.
It's not something we recommend. In this case, it was a good outcome. No one died as a result of this incident, but he very well could have.
Now, you probably had seen this video already and had probably already seen this story about this gentleman who decided to intervene when some young guy came out there with a fake gun. Of course, they knew it was a fake gun afterward. Nobody knew it was a fake gun at the time. I mean, it's people will say, well, gee, why did you give him the money? He had a fake gun. Well, you don't know it's a fake gun when it's pointed at your face. You know that afterwards when the guy's been arrested and the cops have gone, oh, it's a squirt gun or it's an airsoft or something. But nobody knew that. And certainly the knife, as it turns out, was quite real. In fact, the thief managed to stab the Good Samaritan in the neck once before the Good Samaritan was able to wrestle the knife away and stab him back. And as you can tell, it was quite a knockdown, drag-out battle between this older gentleman and this young guy who wanted to rob the Starbucks. And everyone at the time hailed this guy as a hero. I mean, some people didn't. Some people said, oh, I don't know, he shouldn't have done that. He should have waited for the police. He shouldn't have intervened that way. And, boy, I don't know, that was pretty risky. I wouldn't have done that. And all the talking heads got in there to talk about that he wasn't, he should never have done that. But the fact is, law enforcement thought it was awesome. I thought it was great. I mean, it was risky. He risked his life doing it. But this is a guy that probably is tired of this stuff happening in his town. He's tired of this kind of behavior being let go, and he didn't want to let go anymore. He didn't want to stand by and watch it happen, and instead he decided to take action, and I think that's incredibly admirable. Here's the problem. He did it in California. I was looking on the internet the other day, and I today, as a matter of fact, I noticed this story, and it's going to shock you looking at it. It says, Starbucks hero may be sued after stopping armed robbery. And, of course, there's the video that you can watch again. Now, I don't have the entire story on the screen. I just have the headline. So let me read to you the portion of the story I found relevant. And this is, the man credited with stopping an armed robbery at a Starbucks in Fresno, California, wouldn't you know, it's in California, may now face an excessive force legal challenge by the suspect. And this is a quote from the suspect's mother. He has 17 total stab wounds, lacerations, and defensive wounds, said Pamela Chimienti, mother of the alleged thief. This is what she told the news. She went on to say, the guy, in my opinion, went from a good Samaritan to a vigilante. Stabbing somebody that many times, it doesn't take that many stab wounds to get somebody to succumb to you. That may or may not be true. I don't know. I'm watching the fight and I'm going, this was a knockdown, drag-out battle that this older gentleman was in with this young guy. And the young guy tried to stab him and reached behind him with a knife like that. You see it on the video. And he actually did manage to stab the guy in the neck. In the heat of the moment, when you're in a fight for your life, you're not counting how many stab wounds you get, and you're not counting how many stab wounds you inflict. Every time a police officer gets in a shootout or gets in some sort of officer-involved shooting, do you think they don't ask the officer, how many rounds do you think you fired? And the officer will say, well, I think I fired, 4. And they emptied the magazine and reloaded the gun and emptied again. They don't even remember doing it. Because in the heat of the moment, full of adrenaline and a fight, you do what you do, and you're not necessarily cognizant of every little action that you take. That's one side of it. So in the defense of the Good Samaritan, there's no way in the world he was counting the times he stabbed the guy trying to get him to stop. In defense of there is no defense for the guy who robbed the place. He was committing an armed robbery, for crying out loud, with a deadly weapon. Yeah, okay, the gun was fake. The knife, quite obviously, was not, because both he and the gentleman who was trying to stop him got stabbed with it. So I have to look at the mom and say, you know what, Mom, if you'd raised a kid that had some respect for law and order, if you'd been a better mom, perhaps, this joker who's your son would not have been committing an armed robbery. So let's look at your own responsibility as a parent and the responsibility of your child who made this decision, not try to put that off on the guy who stopped him. I mean, he's the Good Samaritan here who stepped in to stop an armed robbery by a criminal with a weapon threatening people's lives, who just, by the way, lady, happened to have been your son. We live in this world of assigned responsibility where everybody seems like they don't feel they have to be responsible for anything. They want to assign their responsibility to society or someone else or whatever. I don't know. But in this case, this guy's responsibility is squarely on his head. He committed an armed robbery and he got stabbed for doing it. So here's my humble opinion as the gun guy. Now, I'm not king, president, or a lawmaker. I'm just a guy, okay? I'm just an honest, law-abiding American citizen and a Californian. But here's my opinion. If you in any way are harmed or killed while you are committing a violent crime, that's entirely on you. That's not on anybody else. And there should be laws in place protecting Good Samaritans and victims from being harassed, harangued, or mistreated through lawsuits by the family of criminals who commit violent crimes and get injured in the process. This gentleman, I use the word loosely, this guy who tried to rob the Starbucks should not have the right or the opportunity or the privilege to sue the gentleman who risked his life to try to stop this thug from committing an armed robbery. So he got stabbed, cut, or whatever 17 times. You know what? If you stop trying to rob people at knife points, you might avoid such consequences. That's the natural consequences of his behavior. And yet, in the state of California, where I live, there is no Good Samaritan law that protects this 58-year-old man from being sued into oblivion by this young thug and his thug family because the old man tried to stop him from committing a violent crime. There should be laws in place in every state that protect people. Maybe there should be a federal law that protects Good Samaritans who step forward to stop people from committing violent offenses. Now, I've made this opinion of mine quite obvious, and I've made it very public, and I've said it many times, and I've written it many times, and the response I generally get is, well, yeah, but, anybody can sue anybody for anything, and, it's just because they're suing doesn't mean he's going to win. Well, you know what? Both of those statements are true. In a lot of places, you can sue anybody for just about anything. You can sue them for spitting on a sidewalk if you want to, if an attorney's willing to do it and the court's willing to hear it. And that doesn't mean that the guy that's filing the lawsuit's going to win. But here's what it does mean. It means the 58-year-old honest, law-abiding citizen who was there to get a cup of coffee and chose to risk his life to protect the clerk and other patrons in the store may get sued for everything he owns. He may prevail in the lawsuit. He may not lose. But it could cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and court fees and everything else to defend himself. And you can say, yeah, you can argue, well, he could countersue. Right. Countersue who? The thug who was robbing the Starbucks? If that guy had any money, he wouldn't be robbing a Starbucks. Give me a break. That guy is sue-proof. He's judgment-proof. If you sue that thug, all he's going to do is disappear on you. He'll disappear off the map. And even if you can find him, all he'll do is find some shyster attorney and pay him $1,500 or whatever and file bankruptcy, and you're done. So anything it cost this older man to defend himself in court, he is never going to see again. If it cost him selling his house or selling some asset or burning up his retirement savings to defend himself, he's never going to see that money again. He's not going to get it back even if he prevails. So the argument that anybody can sue anybody for anything and, he probably isn't going to win, he can do it, but he won't win, doesn't protect the poor, honest citizen who helped from losing everything he owns. If in no other way, by simply having to pay all the bills associated with defending himself in court. Now, true, there's no criminal charges against him. Hallelujah. I'm grateful, Lord, for that. But the civil court that can just drag on forever. And by the way, you and I both know we've seen enough cases where people get sued for stupid, inane, idiotic things, and the person suing them has actually won. It's entirely possible this guy could actually sue this old man and win and get a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for being stabbed too many times. He used excessive force. He stabbed the guy who was trying to kill him with a knife too many times. I mean, that's nuts. That is nuts. Now, at the same time, California has no law to protect the honest, law-abiding citizen who steps up to help. California is eager to let criminals get away with whatever they want. Compare the story we were just talking about to this story that you have on your screen now. Now, the headline honestly doesn't tell us much. All it says is, man pleads no contest to firearms charge, accomplice awaits arraignment. That tells us nothing. But let me tell you what these guys did, and maybe that'll help. Here's the lead part of the story. A 35-year-old man caught with a friend siphoning gas from trucks at a U-Haul store in Belmont earlier this month pleaded no contest to felony carrying of a loaded and concealed firearm Wednesday, according to the San Mateo, California district attorney in San Mateo County. Now, before I tell you, after he pled guilty, what they sentenced him to, what was his punishment, let me tell you what they found on this guy. Oh, he was carrying a gun concealed and illegally, and in his vehicle they found the following narcotics: methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana, as well as multiple weapons, including 4 handguns, one of which was stolen, 2 improvised zip guns, a taser, pepper spray, and multiple knives. Is this guy a professional criminal or what? I mean, what are you going to tell me? Oh, I'm sorry, this guy's a law-abiding citizen who happened to just have all these weapons in his car and all these drugs in his car. And, he was just innocently siphoning gas out of the U-Hauls because, he ran out of money and he just needed a couple of gallons to get home. That's nonsense. This guy's a professional criminal. And, there he is, by the way, right there. And here's his buddy who's waiting to be arraigned as well. Now you know the drugs and weapons this guy had on him and in his car. And they're felonies, the bunch of them, because, anyway, here's what they sentenced him to. You ready? For all of that. Who knows what he was going to do with all those weapons? Who knows what he was going to do with all those drugs? I mean, I guarantee you he wasn't using them all himself. Okay, that's quite a mixed cocktail. The dude would be dead. Here's what they sentenced him to. Are you ready for this? 60 days in jail and 3 years probation. Meanwhile, the honest, law-abiding 58-year-old guy who tries to stop the criminal from robbing a Starbucks with a gun and a knife could get sued for everything he owns because California won't create a law to protect that guy. And this joker gets 60 days and 3 years probation? Are you telling me that this clown and this clown won't go out and commit a brand new crime on the 61st day? Okay, okay, maybe they'll take a day off and they'll commit a brand new crime on the 62nd day. The recidivism with idiots like this is so stinking high, it's mind-boggling, and yet the state of California releases them regularly. Now, this guy or someone of their ilk gets released by the state of California, and you as a homeowner, or you as a person who has a gun at home to defend yourself, or you as a concealed carrier, because there are some in California, I'm not the only one, some counties issue, almost shall issue, so there's a lot of them, just not necessarily in LA or San Francisco. But if you're a concealed carry, you're carrying a gun concealed and it's legal, you're a business owner or a homeowner, and somebody tries to hurt you and you shoot that guy because he's been released from prison or released from jail 82,000 times from the state of California, or he was in prison for violent crimes, and they just decided they didn't have room anymore and they let him go, and you shoot that guy, even though the state of California had him incarcerated, had every right and legal responsibility to lock that joker up so he stopped victimizing people in the state. If you shoot that guy, guess who you're going to be? This dude. Because the thug family of the thug you shot, or criminal or whatever, is going to sue you. Because in this state, they can. And maybe they'll win. And maybe they won't. I don't know. But it's going to cost you an awful lot of money to defend yourself, and it shouldn't. A few years ago, maybe it's a couple years ago, I produced a video in which I explained why California concealed carry holders probably won't help. And I explained this very situation. And I said, you know what? There are people who will step up and help anyway, even though they know this is their lot in life and their life will probably be destroyed if they do. But there are a lot of people who won't. And laws should change precisely to protect honest, law-abiding citizens who wish to help, so that if they do help, they are protected. And then, you know what? If they know they have some protection, they'll help. Don't you want to have some laws in place to protect the one guy in the building who's got a concealed carry permit when the active shooter shows up? Don't you want that individual to know that if they help, they're not going to get sued by the family of that thug? And if they help and what they do is within the law, they're not going to be prosecuted? That's a stand your ground law, isn't it? And an awful lot of states have it, and this state doesn't. You help in this state, and you're open to prosecution if the DA thinks that they can possibly get reelected on your case by prosecuting you, or if they think that you did one little tiny little thing wrong, and you're open to be sued by anybody associated with any part of that thing. You could get sued if you had to shoot some bad guy in the mall who's killing people in the mall. And the fact that you fired 5 rounds to kill this guy and you shot him and he died. You could get sued by somebody who happened to be standing in the vicinity because now they have hearing loss because you fired 5 rounds. Right? I mean, that's insane. But that's the way the system works in this cockamamie state. Now, I know if you aren't irritated by now, you never will be, okay? Now, look. Now I just want to talk about a different guy in a different state. Now, I don't know anything about Tennessee law. Okay, I don't know anything about Tennessee law. But on Sunday, this past Sunday, some nut walked into a church in Antioch, Tennessee, and started shooting people. And a young man, there he is right there, and you can see him on your screen now, this young man. His name is, let me find it, his name is Robert Engel. He's 22 years old, and he was an usher. He was just greeting people. You know, we have ushers at my church. They greet people, make sure they find a place to sit, and they know where they're going, and, you know, where's the restroom, and like that. He's an usher. So he tries to stop this guy, and he gets pistol whipped for his trouble. And then, as far as I read the story, if I got it right, he rushes out to his car, this young man, to grab a gun out of his car to go back and stop this nutcase from killing people. By the way, the guy did manage to kill a woman in the parking lot before he entered the building, and I think he shot 6 others, if I remember correctly. And this young man put a stop to it. Now, they said the suspect was shot somehow. They weren't sure whether this young man shot him or he accidentally shot himself, which would be poetic justice, or what, I don't know. That hasn't been made clear as far as I know, unless there's news out today that I missed somewhere along the line when I was doing my show prep. But I'm relieved that the title of this story about this young man in Tennessee is, and I quote, "Tennessee church usher who stopped gunman is hailed as hero." Let that sink in. When the guy in the Starbucks did what he did, some people said he was a hero, but there were a whole lot of talking heads. I know, I saw him. There were a whole lot of talking heads saying what he did was, oh, he should never have done that. He should have waited for the police. He should have. There was a lot of second guessing going on, and I suspect it's because he's in the liberal bastion state of the republic, the Socialist Republic of California. This guy, on the other hand, is in Tennessee, where I strongly suspect that people have got some sense. And I hope and I pray, because I'm proud of this young man. I'm also proud of the 58-year-old guy who got in there and did something. I hope and I pray that I hope they have a ticker tape parade for this guy. I really do. And I hope that there's laws in place in Tennessee to protect him so that he isn't sued by the thug that he stopped or their family. He didn't have to kill the guy. They've got him in custody, this bad guy. But apparently he got shot somewhere along the line. If this young man shot him, well, you know what? If I met this young man, I'd be shaking his hand saying, "Good shot, young man. Well done. You did a great job, son. And don't you ever let anybody tell you otherwise." He saved I don't know how many lives in that church. Well, God bless him. And you know what, this old guy right here, who's my age, he dove in there and he fought with a guy with a knife and a gun, and he prevailed. And who knows how many people he saved or protected as a result of that. I don't know. Nobody ever will know, because the robbery wasn't allowed to continue. God bless them both. I'm proud of both of them. And I wish we had laws in this state to protect people who do that, but we do not. And I'm making you aware of that because I can't tell you the number of people or the number of times I've had people say, "Well, yeah, but." There ain't no yeah, but. Yeah, you can yeah, but me to death. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in a state like California, you better find out if there's any protection for you at all. And now this sounds like a commercial, and I guess it sort of is. Whether you're in a state like California or Tennessee or anywhere else, you better have some liability insurance of some sort or other. Now, the one I use for my concealed carry stuff and my home defense stuff for it with a firearm is called second call defense, and that's the one that I advise people to get because that's the one I did the research when I did it, and that's the one I found that I thought was absolutely the best. And I've looked at them since, even after Carry Guard came out with the NRA, and as far as I can determine, second call defense is still the best because they front the money. They don't just front 20%. They front the whole stinking thing, and you don't ever pay it back. Nobody else can do that. The rest of them front 20%, and if you are successful at defending yourself, they'll reimburse you. Well, in the meantime, you've sold your house, you've sold your car, you've burned up your savings, or in the case of this other gentleman, your retirement savings or whatever. Now, the only problem with that kind of insurance is it will defend you if you use a firearm to defend yourself. But in the case of this fella, who just wrestled the guy to the ground, hit him over the head with a chair, and ended up stabbing the guy with his own knife, there was no firearm involved. So if he had Carry Guard or second call defense or any of the other ones, it wouldn't do him any good. And I don't know whether his homeowner's insurance, if he has it or whatever, is going to help him. He may just be on his own to have to defend himself in court against this lawsuit if it actually materializes, which it sounds like it probably will. All that lady's got to do is find some shyster attorney to file it, and a judge that'll hear it. And I've got a lot of friends who are attorneys. They're honest, law-abiding guys, and they probably would laugh that woman right out of their office. But as in any other industry, law is no different. You got people who are crooked in there, or people who will do, sketchy things, and all she's got to do is shop around till she finds one. And if you've seen enough legal stories in your life, you know they exist. And the thing about California, I got to tell you, now in California, there's more attorneys than there are anybody else. I think the old joke is that when the highway patrolman pulls you over, he no longer asks you for your driver's license. He asks you for your law license because more people have those. So there's a lot of attorneys in this state. This place is packed with nuts and attorneys, and they'll sue you for just about everything. So I'm not sure what the answer to any of this is, except this. I know that keeping you informed about it is my role, because you may not have been aware of any of this. And if you're from another state, you might not have been aware that states, some of them like California, are actually like this. In fact, you might not even know whether your state is like this. And if that's the case, I urge you to do a little research and find out. Check and see whether you have a stand your ground type law in your state, one that says that you do not have to have a duty to retreat, and one that defends you against lawsuits and criminal prosecution if you defend yourself or a third party, someone else, against unlawful, deadly violence, which is exactly what the old guy in Starbucks did. It's exactly what this young man in this church did. Every state needs to have a law like that. I'm of the opinion that the federal law ought to trump every state, and there ought to be a federal law like that. But if you can get it done in your state, I urge you to do so. And don't listen to the mainstream whack job media that will tell you that stand your ground laws are racist and bigoted. They are not. They are simply there to allow honest, law-abiding people to be able to defend themselves against unlawful violence without having to run away if they don't want to or can't, and without being sued into oblivion or prosecuted into oblivion for simply defending their lives and the lives of others. They're very good laws. I'm grateful some states have them. I wish all states had them, and that's one of the things we definitely need to work on. Now, as far as one way to help is concerned, at least where firearms defense is concerned, and I think it would probably help with all kinds of defense, is to support the National Rifle Association and support your state associations that fight for your Second Amendment rights. Because if they're fighting for your Second Amendment rights, they are, in essence, also fighting for your right to fight for your life and the right to defend yourself. There are also organizations that fight for knife rights, the ability to carry a knife. And if you carry a knife, you may want to look into supporting an organization like that. Sometimes when we join together, our voices get louder and we can accomplish more. The other thing I want to encourage is this. Among conservative people and conservative thinkers and people who love the Constitution and want to fight for their rights, I see more inter-argument among them. They argue with themselves and with each other more than they band together to fight the good fight. We got to stop arguing with each other, and we've got to get together and figure out where our common ground is, and let's go forward and get these laws changed and work together rather than spending our time defeating ourselves. As Jesus famously said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. Well, there's my little podcast for today. I know I ranted quite a bit, didn't I? Well, you got to put up with a rant, I guess, once in a while. Thank you again for supporting me on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. If you would like to join the NRA and support the NRA, you can do it, by the way, with a link that is in the description, and it will save you a little bit of money. You can join the NRA for less than the cost of a box of ammunition for a year. Also, second call defense. If you haven't gotten concealed carry or home defense insurance where firearms are concerned, you need to do that. And I strongly urge you to look to second call defense to protect your family. That's the company we've hired to protect ours. Thank you again for watching. Have a wonderful week, and please be safe.